On camera for the last time before we get the turkey sweats at the Thanksgiving table, so that to look forward to. I'm Adam Kaufman. We got plenty going on in the next hour, starting with a look ahead to Sunday's NFL slate. So here to help with that and a little NFL over-under action, Draftkings contributors Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, and Steve Buchanan. Guys, good morning. It's good to see y'all virtually. Jeff, defending champion Buccaneers, they will take on the Colts. Clash in Indianapolis this weekend. We got a pretty big total right now, 51.5 on that one. Those teams combined for 71 points back in Week 11. So what do you make of this number here in Week 12?
Yeah, well, when we first got the number for this segment, I looked at it and I said, that's too low. And lo and behold, the number is up to 53 on the Draftkings Sportsbook already. No shock here. These are two teams, two offenses that, you just do not want to fade at this point. The Bucs have been, we know who the Bucs are. It's not like we have to guess with this team anymore. They're one of the fastest paced teams in the NFL, just in terms of pace of play. They throw the ball more than any other team. And, they're great at hitting overs. And look, Indianapolis right now is right up there with them. They're 7-4 to the over already this season. It's actually a better record than I think anyone in the NFL right now. So, with Jonathan Taylor basically just running through good rush defenses, Carson Wentz playing okay, even the Indy, just defense giving them good field position. I'm not sure how you go under until this game total gets up to like 54, 55, because that's pretty much where I would put it for a correct total.
Bucs are getting a bit healthier as well, Pierce. What's your outlook on this one?
I'm going to go under, and Steve dubbed this last week with the overreaction season. Are we overreacting to Jonathan Taylor's big game against Buffalo? If we look at the season, and Jeff points out that they are hitting overs weekly, they've also played the 23rd toughest strength of schedule. So Indianapolis has played well against some poor opponents. They're going to face a pretty good defense. I know Buffalo has a good rush defense this season, but Tampa has a good rush defense every single season. Carson Wentz is still the quarterback of this team. I don't expect a lot from Indianapolis. On the other side, Tampa's going to move the ball. And he plays, the two safeties back, soft protection here to let you go underneath. But I don't really think Tampa's going to put a lot of points on the board. They're going to move the ball. They're going to get yards. But there's going to be, that bend but don't break defense that just keeps this thing from going over. So I'll take the under.
Well, Bukes, Jonathan Taylor has gone for north of 100 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown, at least one, in 8 straight weeks. Could we possibly be overreacting to anything he does?
No, he's been phenomenal. Last week against the Bills, that was a perceived tough matchup, right? But he absolutely trampled that run defense. Pierce said it, the Buccaneers, for, all the defensive mishaps that they have, the one thing that's been consistent has been their run defense. But it doesn't feel like that matters anymore when it comes to Jonathan Taylor. At this point, though, now this is starting to get a little too high. You actually missed the boat. That graphic that was just up there about a day and a half ago, this was at 50. That was the time to take the over. Now it's starting to get into that territory where I start to question it a little bit. If I take the over at 50, I'm a happy camper. Now we're starting to get into that 53, 54 range. That's when you have to kind of step back and think about if you want to take the over on this one or not. Jeff said perfectly, the Buccaneers throw more than any other team in the league. The Colts are right up there as well. But if they're going to keep running this with Taylor, at some point, it's going to slow the game down, and that's where the under always hits when the game slows down. So at 53, I take the under. But if that starts to creep back down again, I'd be more interested in the over.
Let's dip down to another over-under. The Vikings, they're in the Bay Area to face the Niners. Total of 48.5 in that one, Pierce. Again, two clubs that each posted at least 30 points last week. Will we see 49 total this time around?
I'm going to take the under, and I can't wait to see Jeff squirm by trying to take the over with Kirk Cousins. This is a Kirk Cousins pumpkin week. Yeah, he looked good last week, but we've seen this before where Kirk Cousins goes from great to a nobody. And a lot of it was just the matchup. Green Bay will give you those underneath routes. They're just trying to prevent big plays from happening. And unfortunately, they didn't do it. Yes, Justin Jefferson was awesome last week, but that's because he had the most yards after catch for the season for him. So, they just played poorly in Indianapolis, and San Francisco, I don't think is going to give them that. San Francisco is not going to give anything on the run. I think if you're buying the over here, then you're buying Kirk Cousins at his highest stock. You're buying Justin Jefferson at his highest stock. I think this is the time to sell for those guys. Dalvin Cook's going to struggle to run against this team. You look at San Francisco, they're not giving up very many passing yards anyway. You got to go back to Aaron Rodgers in, week 2 or 3 when they gave up 261 passing yards. Yeah, they gave up a bunch to Goff in garbage time in week 1. But I believe in this pass defense, and I just don't think that the Minnesota Vikings are going to be able to replicate what they did last week.
Steve, can we stick up for Cousins a little bit? He's been playing mistake-free football for 5 weeks.
Yeah, you got the wrong guy there, pal, if you want to stick up for Kirk Cousins. I mean, like what Pierce just mentioned, I mean, defensively, the 49ers have held opposing quarterbacks to 250 yards or less since week 3. Since week 3, we're talking about here. Both these teams 5-5 on hitting the over, so they're not really doing anything extremely well in that sense here. I'd be more inclined to take the under in this one. Quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of this 49ers offense at all either. Jimmy Garoppolo's had a couple of great weeks. I wouldn't say Jimmy Garoppolo and great quarterback are something you usually use in the same sentence. Selling high on both of these teams, I'll take the under.
Couple guys we've typically referred to as game managers here. Moose, what's the expectation?
I mean, I might have to start referring to Stephen Pierce's game managers here. Who cares about Kirk Cousins in this game? The San Francisco 49ers offense, Steve may not like it, but 30 points in 3 of their last 4 games. The Minnesota defense allowed over 30 points in 2 of their last 3 games as well. I mean, this Minnesota rush defense is going to get absolutely trampled. I think San Francisco is definitely in play here for over 30 points again. And, Kirk Cousins, I don't have to like Kirk Cousins. I don't care if he throws 3 turn picks in this game, but he's probably going to have some good garbage time action. Does have Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook for those big plays. I'm actually surprised that this one isn't at 50. And I think at 49, you do see this creep up. So at 48.5 right now, I would take the over. I would lean slightly over here. I would.
All right, guys. The Rams, they have the Packers at Chili Lambeau this weekend. Bukes, Packers, a narrow loss last week. The Rams were off, obviously, so they'll be well rested and all of that. That's nice. But, only about an hour ago, this game had a total of 48. Things are already moving. It's 47.5 now. What's the outlook?
Yeah, this is getting too low for me now at this point. I'd be more interested in taking the over at this point. I mean, you're talking about 2 teams that the stock is somewhat down on. The Packers weren't able to knock down the Vikings, and the Rams have just looked, abysmal over the past 2 games that they've played, right? And so at this point, is that an overreaction? 47.5, if I had a look-ahead line on this a couple of weeks ago, I'd be like, yes, I'd be taking the over on this. 47.5 for these 2 offenses. Like, these 2 offenses are too good to be in the position that they should be hitting the under in this game. 47.5 is just too low at this point. I'm surprised it's come down as much as it has. I would not be shocked that by the time Sunday rolls around, this is up near 50.
Moose, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be Johnny Over, but I think you do look at this line, and like Steve said, it's coming down. So almost like the guys wanted to fade the Indy Tampa Bay game because the line was getting too high. I want to go over on this game, and I want to see if I might even get to 46.5. I could see that happening. But I think the biggest thing here is you've got the Rams offense coming off a bye, and now this Packers defense, it's finally starting to show some. Everyone thought it was going to suck without Jari Alexander in there, and it wasn't good last week against Kirk Cousins. Now they have the Rams passing game to deal with. I think you're going to see the Rams put up some points here, and obviously Aaron Rodgers, we know what he can do off of last week. Even if he's not 100%, I still think the Packers probably get to 20, 23 points or something. So, yeah, I want to wait and see if we can get 46.5, but I would still even lean over around the 47 number.
Pierce, what's your view here?
Yeah, I'm going to dive in on the under now before it gets lower, and it should go a little bit lower. Both these defenses are playing well. I know last week the overreaction is, well, Green Bay's secondary's finally been exposed. Yeah, they had a bad game, but that was 1 week. Over the course of the season, they've been fine without Jair Alexander. They've been able to limit those big plays. That didn't happen last week, and they gave up a couple of big plays, and they lost a game. Los Angeles Rams, they look good as well on defense. They're not quite as intense as they've been in the past. Their pass rush was second best last season. This year, it's just top 10. Still, though, it should be fine against Aaron Rodgers, who seems like he's struggling with the toe injury. He's talking about it. He's either making excuses, whatever it is. He's not playing well. He's down a couple offensive linemen against a good pass rush. Matt Stafford, at the end of the game, his stats look great, but he's playing garbage time the last 2 games, and they're just not executing on the right plays. When they need a third down conversion, they're not getting it. He's getting sacked. They're making poor passes. And if they do that again, they're clearly not going to go over. So I'll take the under now because it's going lower.
There's been kind of a theme here in this segment, guys. Big offensive games last week from the Steelers and Bengals as well. We got an AFC North matchup Sunday, a total of just 44.5 points. Moose, you like the over?
No, I'll finally throw in an under here. Look, Pittsburgh, I know it's tempting, right? I mean, you see Pittsburgh coming off that I don't even know what you call that game versus the Chargers. It was just like a couple of kids in the backyard throwing bombs. But, and then you've got Cincy putting up points against the Raiders. But I think at their core, these 2 teams are slower paced. They're going to want to try and run the ball a little bit. And, ultimately, we've got an AFC North division matchup. It's getting a little bit cooler out. This is typically when these games get a little bit close and just slower pace. Pittsburgh's two division games have gone well under this total this year. And, these are two, like, especially the Bengals, still playing at a fairly slow pace overall. So I'll lean under here. I think you probably just see that, especially Pittsburgh after that shootout, probably play a much tamer pace this week.
Pierce, you on board with the under?
No, I'll take the over. The Bengals are going to score against this defense, and the Bengals will lose to the Steelers because that's what they do. You look at the last 20 years, the Steelers are 33-9 against the Bengals. Over the last 10 years, they're 18-3. But somehow, the Bengals are on a 2-game win streak. Now, that is only the third 2-game win streak in the last 30 years for the Bengals against the Steelers. The Bengals are going to find a way to lose. I think they score points against this bad defense, and if they're going to lose, that means the Steelers have to score more points, so give me the over.
Split the difference for us here, Steve.
Yeah, I'm really torn on this total here. I mean, it's concerning that, Najee Harris wasn't able to have the stellar game that everyone thought he was going to have against one of the worst run defenses in the league. If teams are able to stop Harris, where is the offense going to come from on the Steelers? He's handling literally half of the total team touches on this team. So if they're not going to get it done with Harris, they're certainly not going to get it done with Ben Roethlisberger. So as I'm speaking like this, that would probably lead me to take the under in this one. I would be interested in taking the over 24.5 points for the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think they're going to have many issues moving downfield against the Steelers defense. So I'd be interested in the Bengals team total over, but give me the under for the game.
All right, we got one more. First place in the AFC could be on the line when the Titans visit the streaking Patriots in that stingy defense this weekend. So we need a view on a 43.5 point total, Pierce. It's not high, obviously. What do you think?
I'm going to take the over, and I just want to take a moment here to talk about how right I've been about the Titans, their frauds, and how right I've been about the Patriots. The Titans, they're a one-and-done team in the playoffs. The Patriots are basically a 10-1 team, and you look at that one loss, it was against the Saints. You run that game back, and the Patriots win that game by 30. This is a real team that's getting better every week. Give me the over, 45-0 Patriots.
All right, script says I got to go to Bukes here, but Pierce, if you want to keep talking, I like the sound of that.
Oh, my God. Get over it. This Boston heroism here.
All right,
is it my turn? Can I talk now?
Yeah, you're on camera. I didn't tell you not to talk.
Just let him, make him stop, Steve.
I mean, he just totally derailed the whole show because he's got to talk about, his girlfriend Patriots. Look, after starting the season 0-4 with the over, the Patriots have hit it in 5 of their last 7 games. Obviously, they didn't hit him that last one against the Falcons because they didn't score a single point. Can't hit the over when you're not scoring a single point. This defense has been excellent over the past 5 games or so. I mean, they've given up less than 10 points in 3 straight games now. That is absolutely insane, but that's why this total is as low as it is. So it's a low total. The Patriots are crushing the over right now as of late, but if other teams aren't scoring, if they're not doing their part, it's hard to hit the over. I mean, 13 total points in the last 3 games given up. That is just absolutely absurd. With the issues the Titans are having right now, going to have to side with the under.
Rolls eyes, still compliments Patriots. Go ahead, Moose.
Okay, first of all, mark this tape because Pierce thinks the playoffs are starting like tomorrow. I didn't know that. I mean, so the Titans, they still might get Derrick Henry back, AJ Brown back. I didn't know that the playoffs were going to starting like against this game against the Patriots.
Playoffs start in August, buddy.
Mark this tape. Pierce says one and done. We'll see, pal. I'm going to take the under in this New England game, anyways, this week. Steve laid it out. The New England defense is playing well, but guess what? So is the Tennessee defense, which Pierce doesn't want to admit. They've allowed 22 points or less in each of the last 3 games. Even last week, getting down to Houston, I mean, they still only allowed 22 points. I think you're going to see like a 2017 game, 2013 game here. I don't know if Tennessee is going to win. That's not what we're talking about right here. I just think it's going to be a close game. You got Vrabel against Belichick. It's going to be a close defensive battle. And I think the Titans are going to keep it close. It's going to be close. It's going to be under. And let's just go under.
Honestly, I just appreciate Pierce calling out the Titans for being frauds when they've won 6 out of 7. That's kind of the best part of the whole thing. All right, fellas, thank you very much. We'll bring you all back a little bit later on. When we return, though, we'll talk pucks. First, I had the chance to catch up with our good friend Nick Eatman yesterday, get his thoughts on another Thanksgiving showdown in Dallas. Those are always fun. So take it away, me.
Nick Eatman has covered the Cowboys the last couple decades, kind enough to join us here at DraftKings every single week. I'm Adam Kaufman, and Nick, of course, after absolutely blowing doors off the Falcons, not exactly what the NFL's most potent offense was looking for in Kansas City. No touchdowns, 9 points. Of course, there were injury concerns as well going in and coming out of that game. So did this one just mainly come down to personnel?
I think it's more than that. I mean, more than personnel. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, and personnel at the wrong spot. You know, the offensive line injuries, and then you've got the you know that leads to the quarterback running for his life, and then his receivers aren't there. So yeah, that was a big part of it. There, it's hard to kind of match with Mahomes, even though the defense did a nice job. But I also think too. I mean, you can't overlook the fact that the Cowboys have to rise to the challenge on games like this. And now, we're seeing a couple of times now where they haven't done that. So you can say that's personnel, and when they get another opportunity, if they're they got more help, and more players, then maybe that they can prove us wrong. But as it stands right now, the jury's out on if they can go and win a big game like that.
There is still much to be thankful for overall for the NFC East leaders, of course, and as is annual tradition, a Thanksgiving Day game coming up against the Raiders here, which should be a lot of fun. We'll get to that game in just a little bit, but just as it comes down to that personnel that we alluded to, of course, there's no Amari Cooper. He tested positive for COVID. He's unavailable for a couple games. CeeDee Lamb is dealing with a concussion right now. So as you look at this offense, who's in the best position to step up?
Well, I mean, Michael Gallup's in the best position. I mean, he's going to be the main guy if CeeDee Lamb doesn't play. And, that's probably going to be a 50-50 thing right there before kickoff. CeeDee Lamb has a chance to play despite having the concussion. All signs are pointing in a positive way for him. But still, I think, it'll be a good opportunity for Michael Gallup, good opportunity for Cedric Wilson as well. Cedric Wilson did not have a great game, had a couple of drops, at key plays in that one. In the second half when he had a lot more reps. Again, I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz. I think Dalton Schultz, it gives, Dak that security blanket at tight end. He had a pretty good game there against the Chiefs. So I would say Schultz, Gallup, but again, not ruling out, not ruling out a CeeDee Lamb to play, but also Tony Pollard. He could factor into this more than just a backup running back. He could do some things too. They need more speed. They need more playmaker. I would imagine he could get on the field more.
Those three main pass catchers that you just mentioned there, and obviously Gallup, Schultz, and Wilson, they combined for, I think it was 25 targets in that loss to the Chiefs. Gallup had 10 of those in just his second game back. It wasn't the best game for him, but as you noted, I mean, very a focal point of that offense in terms of Dak Prescott, at least looking in his direction. What have you seen from him a couple games in here?
I think he's easing his way back into it. And he was the third guy 2 weeks ago. And then all of a sudden in the second half, he's like the number one guy. So he's looked a little rusty at times last week, but then he made a couple of nice catches on the sideline. He's kind of showing the things that made him a really good receiver before. We haven't seen deep ball threat, but he was wide open, and Dak missed him on the first play of the game. So, he did kind of provide that look. So I think he's done a pretty good job. He just needs to, really take advantage of the opportunities this game.
Las Vegas has dropped its last three. It's been obviously a wild ride this year for the Raiders. You take nothing for granted, I realize, but is this a get-right spot here for Dallas?
It has to be. It really does. And I think it's possible, of course, but I also think I've seen Thanksgiving Day games are kind of weird, and, who handles the short week better. The Raiders coach, Rich Bisaccia, has been around the league for a long time. He's been with the Cowboys for several years and handling short weeks on Thanksgiving. So, he knows exactly how to get the team prepared, and the Raiders need it. They're reeling as well. They may look at this and go, hey, this is a get right game for us because the Cowboys have lost 2 or 3, both to AFC West teams. So, maybe they're going to come in here with some confidence as well. But from the Cowboys standpoint, they've got to show that they can handle, a short week, get this victory, because after this, it's 3 straight road games for them. And so, if you're gonna do something, you got to get to 8-3 and beat the Raiders.
You've seen plenty of these games, obviously, in your 20-plus years with the team. Do you have a favorite Thanksgiving Day moment or game that involved the Cowboys over your time with the club, or even just the last half century in general? You want to, I don't know, shout out the Mad Bomber or something like that?
Jason Garrett, is that what you're talking about?
No,
or
wasn't that
Clint Longley.
Clint Longley,
Clint
yeah.
Longley taking it
Back
way
in
back.
I think mid 70s. It was before your time, granted.
Yeah, it was a little bit before my time, but that's still probably considered the greatest Thanksgiving play on a positive note for the Cowboys. One of the most memorable is, of course, Leon Lett and against the Dolphins. And, the first Thanksgiving Day game I covered, the Cowboys held Randy Moss to just 3 catches. Unfortunately, he went for 50-yard touchdowns on all 3 of them. I think he went for about 158 or 163. Yeah, he was a rookie that year. He showed the Cowboys that maybe they should have drafted him. I'll never forget that game. That wasn't a positive one, but really just the whole thing. It's my favorite game of the year. It's my favorite holiday. I just love what it represents, and the Cowboys get to do this game every single year. And I miss every Thanksgiving with my family. But there's something, but it's a good excuse too when you're like, where's Nick? Well, he's there, he's right there. What we're watching, and somebody has to do it. Some people, it's just like those NBA Christmas games, they're tradition for a lot of families, but somebody's got to go out there, play the games, cover the games, shoot the games on film, referee the games, all that stuff, and it's a great obligation. And, I take pride in being a part of it. So I really, maybe that's not a good answer, but I love everything that Thanksgiving brings to the Cowboys and to the NFL.
Just to build on that for a second before I let you go, and this goes beyond your own personal beliefs, although obviously they're included in this. I mean, so few teams, I mean, really it's always Dallas and Detroit, and then obviously there's another game that's involved in the holiday as well. But it's those 2 teams that are annually hosting this game. What makes this game, this event, so special year after year?
I think it's to me, it's a lot of what I just said about, just it's family tradition and all that. But in this world that we have where everything's different, technology changes us all the time. Every once in a while, it's nice to know that things don't change, and I know I'm going to walk into the press box a little past noon, and the Lions are going to be playing, and I don't really know who they're playing. I'm going to guess the Bears, maybe the Packers or Vikings, or I don't know. Patriots sometimes play that game, and I'm going to be the Lions are kind of hanging in there and get ready for this game, and then everyone's so much more festive and all that. It's just you just know where you're going to be. You're going to be at 3:30. The Cowboys are going to be playing, and the turkey's going to be there, and the ham's going to be there, and all the sides and all that. It's just a little bit of a normalcy, and like I said, I love what the game brings and it represents, and it just shows a lot of things change, but that one hasn't, and I like that.
Always great to talk with Nick. That is a man who, if you didn't hear, he absolutely loves himself some Thanksgiving. Jeff Ulrich coming on back with us, along with Paul Bruno from RotoWire for our NHL opening face-off. We thank you again for hanging out here with us on the Sweat. Massive 14-game slate tonight, right before Thanksgiving, guys. Paul, we need a favorite DFS play at center. Who you got?
Well, Adam, does anybody believe that McDavid will be held off the score sheet 2 games in a row, particularly when he's up against a weak lineup like that of the Coyotes? Not me, so I'll pay up to the top of the board for his price of $9,600. On the other hand, even as a Leaf fan, I'm going to fade Austin Matthews tonight against a tough top-checking assignment that he's going to face in the likes of Philip Deneau and Anze Kopitar. That's 2 of the best defensive centers in hockey, and he'll face both of them all night long. That's a matchup that the defensive-minded Kings have pivot, particularly Deneau, has won dating back to last season's first-round playoff loss for the Leafs. I'm still trying to forget that one. Thanks for bringing me back that flashback. Lower on the board, I like Sebastian Aho of the Hurricanes as the #1 center of the league's top-scoring team at the quarter pole, and he meets with the expansion team that has looked every bit that part in losing 8 of their last 10. It'll cost you $7,500. I don't mind paying up for centers tonight.
Well, Jeff, we know that you're all about Edmonton, obviously, and so there's not going to be any Connor McDavid slander with you. But I don't know, you want to stick on the same team? You want to go with Leon Draisaitl? You want to stay priced up at Austin Matthews? Who stands out to you?
I think Paul covered the high-priced guys tonight. I mean, look, but we got a 14-game slate. There's a lot to choose from, and you're going to need some value. I think looking at the Florida Panthers tonight is definitely going to be a savvy move, a savvy way you can get some pretty well-priced players. in a better than advertised matchup. You've got the Flyers coming in, losers of the 3 of their last 4 games. Their goaltenders have started to regress a little bit, which really shouldn't be that big a shock. I don't think this team is as good defensively as they've started the year. Sam Bennett is the player I want to target at 6,300. Alex Barkov out. Bennett handling all the big first line duties, and he's just been really productive for DFS. It hasn't shone through with like a multi-point game yet, but 11 shots on net in his last couple games. He's going to be handling the power play 1, playing alongside Duclair and Jonathan Huberdeau. It's a really good spot for Sam Bennett. He's a very quality player, and again, 6,300 for the top line of the Florida Panthers offense right now. Yeah, you should be interested in that every night. So I like him for a little bit of value.
Let's stay with you here, Moose, for a favorite play at wing. Of course, your first opportunity to go with the high-priced guys. Alex Ovechkin stands out. David Pastrnak is priced up as well. Do you like someone up there? Do you want to go a little cheaper? What do you think?
I mean, again, like you can definitely pay up for those guys. You're not going to be able to fit in like McDavid and Ovechkin, all these guys, right? I mean, you've got to look for some good like upper tier value, we'll call it. I like Nikolai Ehlers for that reason. Taking on a Blue Jackets team who, I mean, quite frankly, they can definitely give up a ton of goals on any night. Certainly gotten a bit of a shootout with the Buffalo Sabres of all teams in their last game. So it's a Columbus team I really don't mind attacking. They allow a lot of shots on goal as well. And you've got Winnipeg should be coming in here a little bit hungry. I mean, this is a good offense, but they really got shut down in their last 2 games against Pittsburgh and then Vancouver as well. Ehlers, though, I mean, averaging 3.6 shots on goal per game, really just playing a big part of that, like, Winnipeg top 6. I think at 6,400, you finally got him at a decent salary here. He was up in, like, the upper 6Ks the last couple starts that he's had on DraftKings. But now he's down. I think this is a player you should target tonight. And, again, Columbus's defense really hasn't been that good of late. So I like the Jets forwards, and I really like Nikolai Ehlers. There
are definitely some good plays, obviously, in the upper 5K range, low 6K, sort of that middle of the pack here. Paul, what are you thinking?
I'm going to give you one high and one low. I like on the top of the board, Ovechkin at $9,300. Very tempting as he lights up Canadian opponents regularly, knowing that there's going to be lots of eyeballs on those games. And he's done that for a long time. And yes, I brought it up mainly because I take great joy in pointing out that the Habs are just not very good this year. And I also like the matchup for Matt Duchene at home against the Vegas club that has the longest injury list almost of any team in the league right now. It's a bad matchup for the visitors as the Minnesota Wingers is one of the hottest scorers in hockey with 10 goals and 4 helpers in his last 10 games. And yet he's only priced at $5,900 tonight.
All right, so let's keep going here. We'll stay with you, Paul. Favorite defenseman tonight is, you going high, you going low, middle? What do you think?
Well, I got to go low because I'm taking a lot of high-priced forwards here. I'm going to focus on the Blue Liners under $5,000 tonight to find a couple of solid value plays, in my opinion. First, the Jets are almost back at full strength, and with what we've seen out of Nate Schmidt most recently, I'm pretty excited about his future in Winnipeg. He's caught up to their schemes, and he's now given them a third credible defensive scoring option from the blue line. And I think he's only scratching the surface in that regard with 5 points and 25 shots on goal and 13 block shots, all in his last 10 games. He costs only $4,300 against the Blue Jackets tonight. And then cheaper than that, I like Rasmus Dahlin of the Sabres. I think this is the first time I've given a Buffalo reference all season. But tonight he's only costing $4,000 against the visiting Bruins. And this former first overall draft pick is really reminding people of why he got that high accolade. He has 8 points in his last 10 games, along with 23 shots on goal and 7 block shots in his last 10, playing in all the high leverage minutes for the Sabres. And they play very tough against the Bruins, a longtime division rival. It doesn't matter where these teams are in the standings. It's always a rivalry game, and the Sabres will give it the best shot, and Dahlin will be front and center there.
Couple sub 5K guys in addition. You could Gostisbehere, Provorov, guys like that here. Moose, you want to stick with value, which you've been doing, obviously?
I think I'll mention a couple from both ranges. I mean, Devon Taves of the Colorado Avalanche, anytime you can get like Girard or Taves under 5K, especially in a pretty solid matchup, I mean, I think those are good values. But I really don't mind paying up for Brent Burns in this spot. I mean, I feel like whenever Ottawa is playing a team, like you really just need to look at the high-priced players on that team. Burns is coming in with no points in his last, I believe it's 5 games now. So he has cooled off after that hot start. It's a little concerning, but at the same time, I mean, like not much has changed. This is just a bit of a slow stretch for him. And again, you've got the Ottawa Senators coming in, just playing terrible. I mean, they've got one win, in their last 9 games. Everything is kind of tanking in terms of power play ability and stuff like that, or penalty kill, excuse me. I like Brent Burns here if you're going to pay up. I think Aaron Ekblad is also really interesting there. I mentioned the matchup against the Flyers. I don't mind that at all, but Burns is the guy who really feels like he could explode in this spot. It's expensive, but I think that all the San Jose sort of top players tonight should be of interest to you, and I don't even think they're going to be that highly owned on a 14-game slate.
All right, why don't we go to the Draftkings Sportsbook side of things here, Jeff? We'll stay with you. And how about a best bet on the money line? Who are you just super confident is going to win tonight?
I am pretty confident that the Winnipeg Jets are a very, very good value on the money line tonight. They're sitting at minus 130. They're small underdogs going up against the Columbus Blue Jackets on the road. But I think when you really start to look at these two teams, there's a pretty big difference. Paul mentioned this team was getting healthy, the Jets, and I think the only reason they're only minus 130 is that they've lost a couple tight games. And yeah, one of them was to Vancouver, but that was on the back end of a back-to-back. There's no shame in losing to the Penguins, who were playing well, and they really just got stymied by a goalie. But again, you do not want to get in a shootout with the Winnipeg Jets, considering their top six, and that's probably what's going to happen tonight because the Blue Jackets just have not been good defensively. Connor Hellebuck is playing really good too. He's probably going to get the start here tonight. I think the Jets should be bigger favorites. They're easily my top just pure money line play of the night.
All right, what do you think here, Pablo?
I'm going to give you two. I mentioned how Nashville's scoring much more than we're used to seeing in the last couple of seasons. Tonight they faced a depleted Vegas club. The Preds have a raucous home crowd of their own behind them, and I think they could put a beating on the visitors tonight. So take Nashville at minus 120. And I think the Islanders are much easier to play now that they're missing their top four defensemen and a number of key forwards, all mostly due to the COVID protocols. The Rangers, meanwhile, are only missing Sammy Blais from an otherwise full and healthy lineup that's been getting scoring from throughout the roster in recent games. And they've allowed only 13 goals against in their last 6 outings. I say take the Rangers at plus 105.
Boys, you're both all done, which means our hockey talk for today is done as well. You're also both in Canada, so I guess have a happy Thursday. We'll be back, a preview of tonight on the hardwood in just a few, but right now, let's check out the Unreasonable Odds podcast. A very special guest, the commish, Johnny Avello.
And before we start looking ahead towards this week, we spoke about how we like the Pats in the standings over the last week here. The number in the futures market continues to drop week by week as they just keep winning. So you actually have to drop the number now. How much money is this team actually taking at this juncture?
Even before they went on this run, there was Pats fans, believers taking some of that 50 and 60 to 1 money that was out there. Then they were also taking the money down the ladder, the 30s, the 25s, the 20s. But now at 14 to 1, it's slowed down. I guess the value's out of the Pats now. I really like Mac Jones and what the coaching staff has done. And if the Super Bowl was played this Sunday, I would give them a legitimate shot.
Yeah.
But with the game 2.5 months away, there's going to be a lot of changes from the way it looks now.
Don't peak too early. That's what they always say. Do not peak too early. And the Patriots it's hard to argue they're not peaking right now. And you mentioned the way that they're playing. I'm going on a tangent, but like the coaching that we've seen, the Patriots weren't running plays to allow their offense to do what they're doing now. Now they are, which makes them a completely different team. And it's something we're going to talk about plenty on this podcast. But all right, before we get into
one thing to add to that is that if you ask Belichick, what about coaching all these years, what was one of his more successful or seasons that he enjoyed, he may come back and say this was it. Yeah. Because this, he's taken his team from nothing to something. Now, it's all not him, of course, but, he is certainly a big part in the mix.
I mean, anybody that watched the Houston Texans game, you're running 2 draw plays and then a screen pass on 3rd and 13. Now there's 20, 25, 30 yards downfield to Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, and it is a different animal. All right, before we move into the Thanksgiving slate and the rest of the Week 12, is there any games that we missed on, whether it be very good or very bad results for the book in Week 11?
Yeah, the good. Cowboys, Chiefs was good. Packs, Vikings, that was good. Seahawks and Ravens, that was good. And Bears, that was Ravens, Bears, they were all good results. The Titans, Colts I mentioned was not good. And the Steelers, Chargers was not a good one. It actually wasn't a bad one. the Titans Colts was the only real bad one. So overall, it was just an excellent week for the house.
All right, so moving on to week 12, we have a 3-game Thanksgiving slate coming up, as we always do. All 6 teams playing on Thanksgiving lost on Sunday by a combined 72 points. Not great to be going into this Thanksgiving slate week with the short week there. It feels like all these teams are tough to predict, but where are bettors putting their money so far, and how much larger is the handle usually on these Thanksgiving games?
Boy, that's shocking that all 6 teams lost.
Brutal.
Interesting spots on Thanksgiving. There's nobody has momentum, so you can't use that argument.
I guess you can't. Oh yeah, this is going to be a big wagering day. The leadoff game, that's the Bears Lions. That will likely be the weakest in the handle of the 3. Neither of the teams are going anywhere. Both have quarterback issues. The Lions open up the Bears 3. It's trending towards 3.5. So that game will be okay. But nice lead off to the day, though. The following games should be really massive in handle. Cowboys open 7-point choice. I can see this being pushed to 7.5. I also expect the Raiders to get some money line money at around 250 or better. And then Bills at New Orleans. We opened the Bills, the road favorite, at 4.5. It's now 4. I think 4.5 seems more likely where this game's going to end up. Both teams in the hunt, certainly for playoff implications. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a big betting day from morning to night.
And then following up with that, same for this Sunday, where's the early money here, and what games do you expect to see some movement as we get closer to Sunday kickoff?
Well, I can tell you one that's moved already. We were just talking about them. The Pats opened up a 2-point at home over the Titans. Now that's up to 6. Pack opened Packers 1.5 at home over the Rams. And the Rams are an early choice right now with the bettors. That game is now down to 1, and that thing could go lower, maybe even a pick. And then there's the clash in the AFC North. Browns are taking some action and opening up a 5.5-point dog at Baltimore. That's now down to 4. So those are the 3 right now that have taken the most action.
Stuff from football to hockey, now to hoops with my buddies from the Slate Draftkings contributors, Gary and Thorne, Matt Meiselman. I've missed you both terribly. It's not just the ice, huge slate on the hardwood tonight as well, guys. 13 gamer, this is our NBA building block segment. Gary, and we're going to start with you, see if there's anyone you're building around at center tonight. But, you know, with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, Rudy Gobert being your big names, obviously, I'm not sure any of them is in a great spot.
I mean, there's a lot of names on this slate. As you mentioned, it is one of the bigger slates we've had all season, so there really isn't any shortage of intriguing options. So I'm not really going to go with a guy at the top end. I'm going to stick with someone in the middle tier, and really it's just picking on the Charlotte Hornets, who tend to be one of the better DFS matchups we've had all season long. They just play at such a frenetic pace. They are not a good defensive team. It really helps out their opponents, even when their opponent is the Orlando Magic. I like Mo Bamba at $6,400. You know, wasn't really in a great spot in their last couple games against the Bucs. That's just not a situation where Mo Bamba is going to thrive. But we've seen him have good games against Charlotte already this season. Went off for 37 DraftKings points when these two teams met up back in late November. And there's a reason Charlotte just bleeds fantasy points to opposing centers. They're giving up the 3rd most opponent rebounds per 100 possessions so far this season, while they're also giving up the 4th most points in the paint per game so far this season. I mentioned that they run at such a high pace, the fastest pace of any team in the Eastern Conference. They just raise the floor and the ceiling of a team like Orlando. So I think Mo Bamba's in a pretty good spot tonight.
See, Matt, I wasn't sure if he was going to go with Bamba or Wendell Carter Jr.
Yeah, I think those are both good choices. Honestly, right now, it seems like everyone on Orlando is a good play. One, because the matchup against Charlotte, and then also Cole Anthony's out. So you just have more to go around for everybody. And Orlando does seem just generally underpriced. I think just to find a lower owned guy, Jakob Poeltl at 5,700 in that same mid tier, he doesn't have a great matchup against the Hawks. I just think this is a price that's too low for him if he gets full minutes. So Poeltl was out for a while for COVID protocols. He came back, his price was like $7K because he had been playing really, really well before leaving the team. And now he's back. He's been playing limited minutes, but if he gets back to full minutes, which will happen at some point, I mean, he's the best center on the Spurs roster. The price tag has come down to the point where he's dramatically underpriced if he gets the full minutes. So we still don't know that for sure. I think it's a little speculative, but this is also a matchup where it's not necessarily a good one, but you need his size with the rebounding of Clint Capella on the other team. I think this could be the game where we see his minutes go back up.
Matt, I mentioned Giannis, AD. They're center eligible, forward eligible as well. We'll go to the forward position. Some other big names that are available that are more specifically forwards. Again, Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, Jayson Tatum, DeMar DeRozan, guys like that. But again, you look at the positions these guys are in, not unlike center, it seems like more of a maybe mid-tier to value night. What do you think?
I think that might be true. And Wendell Carter, who is forward eligible also, unlike Bamba, it could be a popular choice here. But I actually think Anthony Davis might not play tonight. And that's going to make things a lot more interesting for Domantas Sabonis, who, even if Davis is in, like, he has plenty of upside anyway. But you take Davis off the Lakers, and the interior defense just is going to deteriorate. So I think that is something that could get overlooked if Davis does wind up not playing because of rest. LeBron is back after the suspension. This is a back-to-back. They don't need Davis necessarily. I think we all saw how much he struggled last night. That was a Russell Westbrook night against the Knicks. Davis was not very good. So if he doesn't play, then I think we see Sabonis just do really well with guys like DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard, who are going to have a hard time keeping up with him. So this might be my favorite pay-up option on the slate because I think he goes a little bit overlooked in what could be a really good matchup.
Gary, this is where I cross my fingers and hope that you just start celebrating all that is good about Franz Wagner.
No, we'll get off the Magic for a second here. We can just go with Jayson Tatum, I think, at 10,100. Obviously, he's going to be very popular if Jaylen Brown is eventually ruled out, which is why I'd almost like Tatum even more if Brown ends up playing. But there's a lot of questionable tags to be watching heading into this slate. I think there's 18 to 22 relatively high-profile guys with a questionable tag right now, and you're going to have that on a slate like this. So Tatum has just really found himself in the month of November. It started slow this season, but he's averaging basically 29 points per game and 1.4 DraftKings points per minute across his last 9 games. And again, a lot of that has been without Jaylen Brown on the court, but we know that Tatum can still be one of the best fantasy contributors playing alongside Jaylen. This isn't Jaylen dependent, I guess is the point I want to make. Mm-hmm. And we've already got a situation where Tatum is 4th in the NBA in minutes per game. He's playing almost 37 minutes per contest. And this should be a relatively close script against the Nets. You think this is a game the Celtics are going to want to win. They maybe push their starters a little bit more than they usually would. So I wouldn't be shocked if maybe we're looking at 39 or 40 minutes from Tatum tonight if things get really, really good against the Nets. So I just think the ceiling is really high with a guy like Tatum, and I'm willing to pay that price.
We'll stick with you here, Gary. And most of the guards with building block potential, it's the higher price ones are pretty much specifically point guards. Again, there's Steph Curry, there's James Harden, DeJounte Murray, John Morant, Damian Lillard. But you want to go down a little bit. C.J. McCollum was great last night. Granted, it's a back-to-back, but he's in a good spot. You could also make a case certainly for Russell Westbrook if, in fact, AD is ruled out. So where are you looking?
I'll go a little lower than that. Fred VanVleet is arguably in the best spot a point guard could be in. He's going up against the Memphis Grizzlies, who are the worst defensive team in basketball. They give up the most assist opportunities per 100 possessions so far this season, and they're not even relatively close in any of these categories. You might want to keep an eye on whether or not OG Anunoby is playing in this game. There's not really a whole lot of crossover between VanVleet's usage and Anunoby's usage, but he's just another relatively high usage player on the Raptors. I guess if you're really wanting to buy into VanVleet, you'd prefer Anunoby not be ruled active for this game. But again, I don't think it really matters all that much. VanVleet leads the NBA in minutes per game. There is no situation where Nick Nurse is willing to take this guy off the court. His last 10 games, his minutes log reads 37, 43, 37, 41, 36, 40, 40, 34, 32, 39. And the only reason that 32 is there is because they beat the Kings by 35 points. And he still played 32 minutes. So VanVleet is just a volume god. I think anytime below he's 8,000, he's definitely tempting. And if he's below 8,000 against the Grizzlies, I think he's almost a must-play.
Honestly, Matt, I wondered if you would shout out Jalen Suggs. Who do you like tonight?
I might have to because the player that I have written down to talk about here is Fred VanVleet. Like Gary and just everything I was going to say. So, yeah, I totally agree with all of that. So I'll give a different pick for Orlando because Suggs is the clear value play. I think he's probably the best point per dollar guy on the slate. He's 4,800, which I think it's too low in general. And then Cole Anthony's not playing, so it's a lot lower than what Suggs should be. We have one injury update we're waiting for there with Gary Harris. If he doesn't play, that's more minutes for RJ Hampton, who's about the same price as Suggs. And then I think the other benefit to Hampton for GPPs is that's some leverage. If Suggs were to struggle and get benched or get in foul trouble, any of that stuff, I think Hampton's the guy that would take over to a large extent. So if you're playing cash games, I think Suggs is the guy at guard. And maybe for GPPs, you just pivot straight to Hampton, who is 4,900 compared to Suggs 4,800.
Before I let you guys go, let's switch things up a little bit. Go to the Draftkings Sportsbook and take a look at your favorite bet tonight. Gary, and start us off. What do you like?
I'm going to go right back to that Raptors-Grizzlies game and take the over. It's 219.5, which is actually a pretty high total this season. The totals have fallen off a cliff the last couple of weeks as the NBA has picked up, or the books have picked up on the fact that none of these games are hitting the over. So this is a pretty big number, but I'm willing to take a chance here because if you look across the last 10 games, the teams that rank dead last and second last in defensive rating are the Raptors and the Grizzlies. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of defense in this game. The Raptors have been scoring points much more efficiently since Pascal Siakam came back. You've just got two relatively trustworthy offensive teams and two terrible defensive teams going tonight. So I think we get over 220.
Matt, you're up.
So I really wish we did this stream at 11 p.m. last night instead of 11 a.m. today because the Lakers-Pacers line opened last night with Indiana -1. The line is now -4. And I don't think that has anything to do with Anthony Davis. I think it's because the Lakers are just not good. And even though LeBron is returning from his suspension tonight, I think the Pacers at full strength are better than the Lakers at full strength. We're getting to the point now with this line where if both teams are fully healthy, it's probably approaching fair. But the thing is, I mentioned before, Anthony Davis could get the night off for rest because he had to carry the team in the second half against Detroit when LeBron got thrown out. And then he played a full game last night against the Knicks. Now they're traveling from New York to Indiana. He was dealing with an illness. It adds up that Anthony Davis might sit. So if he doesn't play, I still think -4 for the Pacers is a good bet, even though the line's already moved so much.
All right, thank you both very much. We have one segment left before our Thanksgiving break, and we are thankful Pierce and Steve are still hanging out in the Zoom room. So stay tuned. We are going to wrap up today's edition of The Sweat with a Thanksgiving edition of NFL Price Check. 3 games tomorrow, of course, so should make the holiday just a bit more interesting for all of us. Pierce, do you have a favorite quarterback for his price on this holiday?
It's going to be Andy Dalton. I tried to talk myself out of it last week, 200 yards passing in one half, but most of those yards came on 2 big plays. He didn't really deal with a lot of pressure, and typically when Baltimore doesn't apply pressure, you should have a really big game. He didn't really do that, but a lot of that was because he had a 43.5% bad pass rate. He completed 11 of 23. The other half of his passes he didn't complete because they were bad passes because he wasn't ready to play. You give him a couple days of practice and an easy matchup against Detroit, he should be able to complete 75% of his passes. At this price, that should be good enough.
What do you think, Steve?
It sounds gross, but this entire slate is basically gross, right? Just like turkey. So, I mean, I guess it all comes to full circle here. I'm just going to roll with Dak Prescott going against the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, there is a good chance now, it seems like, that CeeDee Lamb is going to play in this one as he's going to return to practice supposedly today. If that is true, then I like him even more, obviously, against a really bad Raiders defense. He's pricey, $6,900, second most expensive one on this slate, but he's almost $1,000 cheaper than Josh Allen, who is not in a good matchup against the Saints. So overall, if somebody's going to hit their ceiling on this slate, it's going to be Dak Prescott.
Okay, how about a running back priced just right, Steve?
David Montgomery at 6,000 just feels too good to pass up going up against the Detroit Lions. If I'm going to get a part of this Bears offense, that's the guy I want there. The Detroit run defense has just been absolutely putrid since coming back from the IR. David Montgomery has taken 27 carries in that one, over 110 yards scored. He's yet to score, but is obviously getting almost all the touches in this Bears offense. If Andy Dalton is under center, I expect them to run the ball a little bit more too as well. So at 6K, he's just a little too low for this matchup specifically.
Boys, a lot of Bears love here, Pierce.
3 games.
There's 6 teams to pick from, Adam, so that's going to happen.
Go ahead.
Ezekiel Elliott, I'll pay up for $8,000. Elliott was a full participant practice. Bigger deal, though, is Tyron Smith was a full participant at practice. And when Tyron Smith is on that line, the offensive run game, the pass game plays better as well, but the rush game definitely benefits. And it's a game where we know that Amari Cooper's not going to play. We don't know for sure if CeeDee Lamb's going to be there. I would expect Dallas to lean on the run, pound the run on a short week. And they're facing a Las Vegas team that's allowed the 8th most points to running backs, the 4th most 20-plus yard rushes. You just look at what opposing running backs have done to Las Vegas recently. Joe Mixon, Darrell Williams, Devontae Booker, the Denver duo, the Chicago duo of running backs. And basically the list goes on and on. I don't know how this isn't the worst rush defense in football. Elliott should be able to get multiple touchdowns in this spot.
All right, so Pierce, favorite play at receiver, Turkey Day. You want to pick out Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson?
You read my mind, unfortunately. Yeah, Darnell Mooney is where I'm going to go at 5,700. He played well last week when Andy Dalton took over. I mean, with Allen Robinson out, he ran 32 routes and had 16 targets on those 32 routes. 10 of those targets came from Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton didn't even play full half. So I would imagine that he's going to get at least 10. Maybe he gets 20 targets. You might say, well, that's outrageous. He's not going to get 20 targets. Why wouldn't he get 20 targets against a terrible Detroit team? And last week, he had a good game against Marlon Humphreys, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. He had 5 catches for 121 yards. This is definitely the value play that I will go to at wide receiver.
We had Nick Eatman on earlier here, Steve, celebrating Michael Gallup. You like that play?
I mean, it really depends on CeeDee Lamb, so I'm just going to put all Cowboys receivers to the side. I like Emmanuel Sanders this week at 4,800. Stephon Diggs is in a really tough matchup in coverage, could get shadow coverage in this game. That's going to open up some other opportunities for some of these other Bills receivers. Sanders is 4,800 this week. I know he's been quiet as of late, but this is somebody that could easily go 3x on his salary in this matchup against the Saints, especially if they're going to put Stephon Diggs on lockdown here. Has a few 4 touchdowns to his credit, 2 as well that came during the beginning of the season. But if they're not able to get the ball to Stephon Diggs in this matchup, it's going to go to guys like Cole Beasley and guys like Emmanuel Sanders at 4,800. I think Sanders is a pretty good play on this slate.
Steve, we've got a couple of pretty good tight ends that are available to you here on this Thursday short slate. Obviously, Darren Waller. You have Dalton Schultz as well. Who do you like?
Yeah, Schultz at 5,300. Really, both tight ends in this game are excellent plays here, and that's where the ownership is going to go. But Schultz has been consistently a big part of this offense, even when CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper have been healthy. 8 targets in that last game, 6 receptions for 53 yards against the Kansas City Chiefs. You should see something similar in this game against the Raiders, who simply cannot stop tight ends. 5,300 for Schultz. I like that play a lot.
Pierce, you want to go to the other side of that game?
No, I'm going to stay on that side. I'll stay with Schultz and pay the price. Hopefully my savings at receiver will get me there. The Raiders have allowed the 4th most points to tight ends. And the issue with Schultz this season hasn't been his completion percentage. He catches everything that goes his way. In terms of completion rate, he's the best among tight ends. He just never really gets as many targets as these other guys like Waller. And if Amari Cooper's out, we saw that last week, and if CeeDee Lamb is limited, then we got to think that target issue is going to be gone. He should get around 8 to 10 targets. He catches all those passes. He's a red zone threat. I have no problem paying up a tight end for Schultz.
Pierce, you mentioned obviously before value that, David Montgomery is in a great spot. He's a great value play as well. Who do you like best at value here on Thanksgiving?
Bills DST for 3,100. Don't overreact to one game last week. Yes, the Bills played poorly last week. They're fine. They're a fine defense. They're cheap. And they're a great matchup. They're facing a Saints team that doesn't have a quarterback. I mean, there are no weapons on this team whatsoever. They don't have any running receivers. They don't have any tight ends. Mark Ingram is their running back. And they missed 2 of their starting tackles on Sunday. It's very likely that both of those starting tackles will be out again. I think the Bills are definitely the must-play at defense.
Steve, you got like 15 seconds. Take us home.
Cool. Cole Kmet, 3,700. He's going to get some short throws from Andy Dalton. There you go.
All right, easy enough. That'll do it for today's Sweat. Happy Thanksgiving to you two, obviously. We'll be back Sunday morning, but football talk does not end here. Pardon me. Tune into the Slate. That's this afternoon. Brendan Glashy and Jeff Ulrich coming back. Reed Fowler as well. If you don't know, just know that we are thankful for all of you for being with us throughout the season, and we got a long way to go as well. Have a great Thanksgiving with your family, friends, and football. Talk soon.